Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And the irradiated wastes of Fallout 4 present a far different world than the one most of us know. Despite wrapping itself in a level of ironic satire that can at times be quite hilarious, the Fallout franchise also has a pretty terrifying side to it that the title occasionally shows. And it's that spooky part of the game that I really wanted to hone in on today. Sure, the Great War may have ended over 200 years ago, but boy oh boy are the horrors it created still very much lingering in this Fallout universe. So, sit back and relax as we dive right into 5 of the creepiest locations in Fallout 4. Starting off, we have the Boston Mayoral shelter. You can find this bunker on the far western edge of your map, just south of Fort Hagen. As the name implies, this place was once a large shelter, built back in the day to protect Boston's mayor, Hildenbrand, and his family in the event of a nuclear war. Its current occupants are a small division of Institute Synths, so clearly something went wrong there, and it's the story of what exactly went wrong, communicated by a number of holotapes and terminal entries left behind by the mayor and his family, that really give me the chills. You see, his own journals make it clear that back before the bombs fell, Mayor Hildenbrand was quite corrupt. He knew something was coming, and so allocated millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars to build he, his wife, and kids a lavish bomb shelter to take cover in for when the Great War finally came. And it shows. This place was clearly super expensive. Just walking around, you'll find basketball courts, gourmet kitchens, even a home theater. The mayor really went all out in ensuring that he and his family would endure the Great War in the lap of luxury. Well, when the nukes finally did drop on the city, the first family made it to their shelter, and for the first few weeks, all was great. Sure, the outside world was in chaos, but within this base, the Hildenbrand family continued to live like kings. But then, things began to turn. A crowd of people who survived the initial nuclear blast began to gather outside of the shelter. Somehow they found out about its existence, and they demanded to be let in. Mr. Hildenbrand initially figured he could just tell them to bug off over the intercoms. It's not like they could do anything or force their way in. Besides, a team of guards was also protecting the place 24/7. Alas, the crowd's numbers started to grow, rather alarmingly. Soon, what was once just a dozen or so was now hundreds of angry people, now banging on the entrance, demanding not only to be let inside, but also promising to kill the mayor. Things, they had taken a turn for the worse. Eventually, the family began to panic, realizing they had overestimated the bunker's defenses and underestimated the potential strength of the masses outside. They realized it was no longer a matter of if, but when the mob would break through and storm the bunker. We can listen to their tapes where various family members break down in tears, knowing the horrible fate that awaited them once the enraged crowds got in. A terrified Mayor Hildenbrand developed a plan in response though. He would take his own life by dropping a radio in a bathtub and have his wife present his body to the crowds outside, hoping his death might be enough to calm them down and cause them to either disperse or, at the very least, leave his wife and kids alone.
Hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry it had to end this way. I tried to build a place where our children could live comfortably. You know, I'm a family man, and know our children come first. I'd do anything for them, even at the expense of taxpayers' money. The mob has broken through, and it's only a matter of time before they reach the lower level. As a last resort to protect our family, I give you, I give you myself. Take my body to the people. Tell them I died a coward. Maybe they will leave you in peace. I left the key to the safe with one of the attendants. I forget his name. Anyway, goodbye, my darling. I love you and the children so much.
Sadly, only hours after the mayor died, before his wife had even known he'd taken his own life, one of the rioters outside managed to somehow get a bulldozer, and they rammed it into the shelter's defenses, breaking them down, and the hordes began to pour in, overrunning the guards and butchering the first family, before looting the shelter clean. It's this somewhat satirical yet objectively sad story that makes the Mayoral bunker such an unsettling place to visit. It doesn't help that if you're not aligned with the Institute, some of the synths here have a nasty habit of jump-scaring the player. And there's also a Deathclaw lurking behind the gym, that similarly will try to spook the daylights out of you. But there is a lesson to be learned here. Don't misuse taxpayer dollars, and if you do, make sure you invest in much better security. Next on our list is the MedTech Research Laboratory, located just southeast of Malden. Before the Great War, MedTech was the largest known manufacturer of chems in the United States, and the games have always sort of suggested that maybe they weren't the most ethical corporation. But what we'll see inside of this building and read in her terminals reveal a far more sinister company than we ever could have imagined. This being the company's chief research lab, MedTech conducted a number of experiments on test subjects here. But the thing is, these test subjects weren't volunteers like you would imagine. Instead, they used human slaves. Various computers reveal that the corporation's executives purchased and procured subjects from across the United States. It's left unclear who exactly they were purchasing these people from. It could have been mental health facilities, prisons, perhaps even some shady underground third party. But one thing is clear, none of the test subjects at this place wanted to be here. All throughout the building, evidence of people being held in captivity is abundant. Handcuffs are all over the place. Skeletons can be found in restrained positions. Fridges are filled to the brim with human bones. There's even a few locked cells with now feral ghouls inside of them. Terminals admit that many of their human guinea pigs would pass away, or suffer side effects so horrible that they'd have to be discarded. There are even allusions to them using children in their research. It's genuinely horrifying what was once happening here. Within the executive suites, some special terminals have entries that disclose other, admittedly less unethical practices by the company, such as attempting to introduce their products to school children and MedTech's efforts to intentionally get large populations hooked on their chems, only to later sell them addiction therapy treatments at a massive markup. Ultimately, we learned that just before the bombs began to rain over Boston, the upper management of this building somehow received an advance notice, and while they quietly slipped out, they also initiated a lockdown protocol that guaranteed no one else would be able to enter or leave the building, as to quote, prevent a possible outbreak. This is why when we enter the lab, it will still be heavily defended by a network of auto turrets, and it's littered with the remains of both staff and patients alike. Everyone but a few suits were abandoned and left here to die. Though, knowing what the MedTech employees were doing to unwilling individuals, maybe some of them might have deserved it. Coming in at number 3, no list of Fallout 4's most unsettling locales could be complete without a mention of Dunwich Borers, a large mining quarry in the Commonwealth's northeast, right next to Hugo's Hole. Upon visiting this location and delving deep into its depths, at first nothing seems very special, just another raider-occupied dungeon. But as you venture further and further down, it will become clear that such is not the case. The sole survivor will soon begin to suffer these short, flashback-like events, where for a few brief seconds, you can watch those who worked here before the war perform their duties and just walk around. It's really weird. Terminals in the lower portions of the quarry reveal that the Dunwich Company wasn't just trying to collect stone at this site, but instead, trying to dig something up. Throughout portions, it's also possible to hear audible thuds in the distance, followed by shaking, almost as if something big was stomping about. The whole setting has an extremely eerie vibe. To make matters worse, when you're about halfway through the place, raiders will be replaced by feral ghouls as the primary enemy you face here, which really doesn't help when you're going through dark places. Ultimately, as you reach the end of Borers, you'll witness one final flashback. It seems to depict a ritual of sorts being conducted in front of an audience that may or may not be captive. They do appear to have their hands tied behind their backs. It's incredibly terrifying. Once that ends, you'll be able to dive into a small underwater cave, which leads straight to a metallic sculpture at the bottom, which is just ginormous. And an opening in the cavern will lead you into a chamber, where unique blade, Kremvz, I know I mispronounced that, tooth can be looted on this weird altar of sorts. It's an incredibly strange affair. Overall, Dunwich Borers stands out as among the freakiest and most mysterious environments, not only in Fallout 4, but in the entire Fallout universe. This isn't even the first appearance the Dunwich Company has made in the franchise. Back in Fallout 3, the Dunwich building was an office complex owned by the company that boasted similar horror-esque and eerie vibes that really creeped players out, though ultimately also wielded no definitive explanations. The name Dunwich itself, in fact, stems from the H.P. Lovecraft work, The Dunwich Horror, implying that whatever this company is or was trying to uncover may be Lovecraftian in nature. Oh well, for now at least, it seems this creature has yet to reveal itself to the world above. And I just hope it stays that way. For our fourth spot, we have what is the smallest spot of this video, but in my opinion, it's also actually the most disturbing. Follow the train tracks just a ways south of Oberland Station, and you'll eventually encounter a handful of disturbed and overturned train carts. On the surface of the blue one I'm approaching on screen now, there will be a tiny, somewhat hard to detect hatch. Open it, and after a short loading screen runs its course, you'll be greeted by a frightening sight. The skeleton of a woman lies in a pool of blood next to an assortment of miscellaneous items, including a ham radio, which is playing the following shivering recording on loop.
If anyone can hear this, my son and I are trapped and need help. We were being chased by something, but we're able to escape into this train car. It knows we're in here, though. Thomas is hurt and needs... Oh no! It got the door open! Run, Thomas! Get out!
This woman and her child were being pursued by what was almost certainly a feral ghoul. The recording honestly left me pretty shook. The voice actor did an absolutely amazing job with those lines. While the poor woman's fate seems rather obvious, whatever happened to the child is a bit less clear. The feral ghoul or whatever creature was after them isn't here anymore, and there's no evidence of a child's remains that we can find, suggesting perhaps he got out. Though, I think if we're being honest, we know that the Fallout universe is never that forgiving. Oh well. It's moments like these that make me think the Brotherhood of Steel is very right in their decision to never show feral ghouls any mercy. And finally, last on our list, we take a trip to the Hallucigenia Inc. laboratory in downtown Boston. Before the war, Hallucigenia was a company that developed and sold various non-lethal crowd control chemicals to the United States military and various police forces. That non-lethal part is important. Politicians couldn't just allow forces to open fire on civilians, so they needed something less morbid to quell the various riots and protests engulfing the country leading up to the Great War. Similar to the MedTech building we covered earlier, this location was Hallucigenia's principal laboratory, where they were testing many of their early products. And as soon as we walk in, it will be clear something is not right. A green mist wanes through the air, and throughout the building, various gunners are engaged in firefights. But their aggression isn't directed towards the player. Instead, they're fighting each other. They've gone absolutely insane. Listen to some of their dialogue, and you'll hear maniacal screaming and weird crying. Clearly, something's up with this green mist. Some further inspection of the location, reading various terminal entries, and really just looking at the environment, will provide some context to what's happened here. Hallucigen Inc. was in the process of what they hoped would be the pinnacle of crowd control, a special gas grenade that would go after a target's neurological network and nervous system, effectively compromising their brain and forcing them to stop rioting. Alas, things weren't going the way they hoped. Rather than calm down, test subjects exposed to the gas experienced huge increases in their aggression, and ultimately their brains were left so compromised that most of them would die within a few days of inhaling it. The company just couldn't get it right. Similar to MedTech, they needed some less than willing participants as well to staff their experiments. Though, rather than do what MedTech did and just buy slaves, Hallucigen would simply trick test subjects into thinking they were getting themselves into something less dangerous than they actually were. So, I guess that's a little better, maybe? Eventually, the company accepted that they were just never going to be able to develop the formula they wanted. So, rather than admit defeat, throw their hands in the air, and, just give up, they instead still tried to market and sell this product as a non-lethal device of crowd control, and just lie about what it would actually do. They invited various executives and government employees to their facilities, where they would stage experiments to make it seem like the hallucinogen gas was safe, when in all actuality, it was anything but. For better or worse, nuclear fire engulfed the world before hallucinogen's gas could actually see use by many police forces. So, I guess they kind of got away with it. Though sometime between then and now, the piping must have won array, and now Hallucigen's gas product leaks throughout their halls. Some other holotapes and terminal entries also admit that the company wasn't actually bringing in any money. They were losing billions upon billions of dollars every quarter, but simply falsifying their expense reports to investors, and lying to everybody, pretending that they were profitable. As for why any gunners came here anyway, well, that's a really interesting story in its own right. In fact, it's one of the bigger mysteries in the Fallout world. You see, the gunners were hired by someone to enter the Hallucigen building and recover quote-unquote pre-war technology. Things didn't go as planned, and here we are, but many players are very curious of who this mysterious client that hired them actually is. The emphasis on pre-war technology makes the Brotherhood of Steel a prime candidate. That's kind of their whole thing, trying to recover pre-war tech. Though they're very hostile to the Gunners as a faction, and have their own strong military forces. So it seems unlikely they would hire them for something when they could just do it themselves. It's the same deal with the Institute. Sure, they'd have a reason to want to secure some tech, but they have their own military forces that can get it, rather than relying on some weird mercenary faction. Oh well. Regardless of why they came, the Gunners here met a horrible fate, and it will be up to you to put them out of their misery. And with that, we are going to wrap up 5 of the most unsettling locales in Fallout 4. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Which of these chilling spots left you the most creeped out? Leave a comment down below. This is far from a comprehensive list of every scary place out in the wasteland, so let me know which ones may or may not deserve an appearance in a potential part 2 to be uploaded sometime in the future. Anyway, as always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.